Hi everyone, welcome to this 222 release live stream for PopcornFX. So we'll start with a quick recap on the version status and the release cycle. It hasn't changed since the last time, but yeah, still good to mention it. Then we'll quickly go over some of the new features. Then I'll talk a little bit about one of these new features, which is the new asset generators. And then Benoit will show you a couple of simulation examples we will provide on the marketplace packs that show fluid simulations, 2D fluid simulations, and various other simulation examples using the grids that we introduced in previous versions. So about the current release cycle, we're right now here releasing 2.22. And next version, 2.23, we expect to release it at the end of November, beginning of December. And then we'll switch back next year to one version every 4 months. So regarding the new features and bug fixes, so on the editor side, we fixed the shadow maps that were pretty horrible. I don't know if you can see it very well in the GIF, but there was a lot of swimming, shadow map swimming when the camera was moving, so this is fixed. We also fixed ribbon artifacts that were all noisy between different texture IDs. Yeah, it was kind of interpolating wrongly between two different Atlas styles. Depending on the texture ID values. Anyway, this is fixed. It was due to imprecisions in the shaders. Also, a lot of compiler fixes and improvements, and the anim track sampler can now be used in the GPU simulation before it would cause a fallback to CPU sim. So that's now also fixed. On the template side, we added a bunch of new controls to the UV transforms node, so you can now translate, scale, rotate, and use a specified pivot for the UVs. Also on the local to world nodes, we added an option to use the instance transforms at spawn. So right now, the transform nodes, if there are transforms sent across the event payload, it will use that at spawn instead of the instance transform. So now you have a checkbox where you can force the node to use the instance transform, even if there are transform information in the incoming payload. Also a bunch of new grid helper nodes. It was quite painful to manipulate grid coordinates and IDs without these. They existed for the texture sampler, and yeah, so we just added them for the grid as well. And also a bunch of small fixes left and right on different nodes. So the big new feature is purely content side, so editor side and asset baker side. It's asset generators. So it comes from an observation that for pretty simple VFX textures, it was taking a lot of time to go to different tools, edit the textures, export them, bring them back in Popcorn, go back to tweak them, re-export, etc. And also for stuff like VATs or atlases for imposters, for example, it was quite painful and required a systematic re-export step, which was not friendly at all to automated tool chains because it required an explicit action from artists. So the way we designed this is that now you specify a procedural texture asset. So here, for example, it's this imposter atlas. And then inside this asset, you define how it should be generated. So here it's using a node graph to generate those normal maps. But you can also specify a substance file, for example, a .sbsar file, and it will call the substance library runtime to generate the substance texture automatically when the final asset gets baked. So you do not have to re-export standard images from Substance Designer. It will just get automatically generated as needed when you bake your assets. So yeah, that was the basic idea and goal behind making these asset generators. And it's the same graph as the regular Popcorn simulation graph, so you have access to all the same templates. You cannot yet create templates inside the procedural textures. I will show you later directly in the editor, but this is coming in subsequent iterations that will come probably in the next version, if not early next year.
So to complement the new texture generation stuff, we are going to provide a pack in the marketplace with noise patterns and distance field stuff to allow you to create more easily procedural texture within the editor. And with this version, we are also going to create a new pack on the marketplace that's going to contain simulations, and you can see a few examples of these simulations in action right now. So all of that is real time within Popcorn using all default Popcorn nodes. So yeah.
Also because it runs in the standard particle sim, it can run on CPU and GPU. For those kind of sims, you probably want them to run GPU, but yeah. And in the future, we'll extend the procedural textures to allow to capture states of effects to make like books of effects.
Sims.
Yes. Yeah. So this, you will be able to use that to generate your sims flipbooks, like
a puff of smoke and then capture texture.
Or this reaction diffusion, make a flipbook out of it. Right, so let's jump into the demo. So I'll show you a bunch of examples for the asset generation. Maybe start with a simple one. Yeah. So here, this is a texture we've been using quite a lot previously for rain distortion, like a screen space distortion. And yeah, so that's the graph that generates it. Pretty simple. It doesn't use any template. Typically, we'd want to make a helper template where you have just a single node. You tweak the size of the dot and whatever, the bending of the normals, etc. But the way this works is you have initially two nodes, a texture generator args node that outputs a whole bunch of infos that you can use as inputs to then do computation. So here we just take the UV, and purely based on the UV, we get the distance from the center, and that's how we generate this dot. So you can use any of these to compute whatever. And then on the other side, you have the texture generator outputs, which takes an RGBA color. You just wire that in, and let's say color red. Yeah. So I just wire that, and you get the result. So pretty straightforward. Now on to a more useful example. If I take, for example, this one, that's a bit hard to see maybe on the stream. Let me
the UV's one.
Open that one, maybe normal map. Yeah. So here I don't use the texture generator args because I don't really care about the UV. So here instead, it's this helper nodes that has it, but you don't have to care about it when you use the helper node. So this texture atlas from mesh takes a mesh, outputs all the different properties that you can sample from a mesh. And we just take here the packed normal map and wire it into the RGBA, and that's it. And the enabled pin is just to make the texels transparent where they don't hit the mesh. Without this, I just have a filled background. Anyway, so let's say I want to take the UV instead. So now I just have an atlas with the UV of the texture, and then you can use that as an indirection in your shader. Let's say you have your imposter, and you want to look up a more complex material than just the diffuse texture color. You can use that as an indirection. So super simple, but it can already generate some useful things. Also just a mask or whatever. Oh, yeah, also, by the way, here you can pretty easily control the number of tiles here. So let's say 2 by 2 instead. Animation, yeah, there is no animation here, but you can also get an animation cursor from the texture generator args to do whatever. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You can also generate cube maps. Quickly show you this one. So this is a cube map. You can see the 6 faces, and it basically generates a noise from the cube map. This is an effect, empty effect that uses a background backdrop that uses the procedural cube map I just showed you, and yeah, see the seamless noise cube map. So it can also be useful in some cases. Also, last thing, it's pretty simple right now. You just have a signal graph, you output the RGBA color, and that's it to generate the texture. There is no stack of different steps to generate the texture with intermediate graphs and whatnot. Right now, we decided to do that using purely asset dependencies. So for example, this effect here samples this diffuse texture, which is actually a PKTX, so the extension for the procedural textures, which is this procedural texture. And this changes the intensity of the texture and tries to match an average intensity. And to do that, it samples this pyramid of bitmaps, which are all procedural textures. So basically, here it takes the initial texture, downsamples it some more, and this is like a 1-by-1 final texel with the average color of the entire texture. And then this reads this average color and retints the whole texture based on that. So yeah, you basically have a high-level graph of intermediate procedural textures, but done through the asset dependencies of the whole asset system. Yeah.
Okay. I will now show you the texture nodes. So we have very simple templates to use. So here, for instance, a simple brick texture that you can use as a base for whatever you want to create. We also have Voronoi noise, 2D and 3D. We also have a few SDF shapes that generates a distance field. So right now I'm using this visualize SDF node that just colors the thing, because otherwise you just get that, which is not really visual. It also, because these are primitives, we can just move them around, change some settings on how they combine. As well, for instance, on this star, we can change the amount of points it has. Lots of stuff to get you up to speed to create the stuff you normally create in Substance, but now we can do it directly within Popcorn and with settings and stuff. In the future versions, because we will have multiple simulation steps, so time within the effects, we will be able to create, for instance, here I'm creating a distance field based on a bitmap. It's using the jump flood algorithm that allows us to create this distance field here in just 9 steps on this 512 by 512 grid.
Yeah, just a small precision about you said what you would do in Substance Designer, you can do it here. That's not really the case.
No,
it's much simpler than Substance Designer, and the goal is not to replace Substance Designer in your pipeline. Like I was saying before, you can specify as a source a Substance file. So here, when you right-click New Asset, New Texture. Okay, I don't have the presets. Okay, so you should have one of the presets, which is a Substance preset, where you just pick your SBS AR. But yeah, for very simple things, it's actually faster to do them here. Yeah. So yeah, makes sense to do them here.
And we also the simulation stuff. So here's, for instance, the reaction diffusion simulation. So it's using the diffusion template that will be available on the marketplace, and then also this example will also be available on the marketplace. But essentially this is the first step of diffusion, and then the reaction here is done within the graph here, and then the results are stored. So you basically can do whatever you want within this, and then it just works. Famous last words. Here is a fluid simulation with smoke. We added a few helper nodes. For instance, here this debug flow line that allows you to see the movement of the fluid with the trails. I don't know what you call them, trails.
The funky one, maybe.
The funky one. So yeah, so fluid simulation with to showcase. This is to showcase the field updates. It's a helper node that allows you to update values easily with just like you can change the mode here to whatever you want, and then update your values and then write them in your simulation again. It's pretty nice.
It's nice.
Yeah. So this is a shallow water simulation. So it's a 2D simulation that has a height. So you can use this height to offset a plane, compute the normals and whatever to get a 3D-ish simulation, 2.5D, and with parameters and stuff, we can see the foam forming, splashes appearing where they should. So here is the sim just here. As you can see, we have nice foam moving with the flow. Another type of simulation. Here we have Wave 2D simulations. So here it's a flat simulation projected onto a half sphere to have this dome shield getting attacked and reacting with the simulation. Yeah.
Can you zoom in a bit?
Yeah.
So we can see better.
For example, the texture on the shield has been made with one of the texture templates.
Also, one thing to note right now in the editor, so these simulations run on 2D grids, but to display them, here we display them as a mesh. Right now, in the editor, you can't really have like a mesh render or a mesh backdrop and deform that based on the contents of a grid. In Engine, you would get the grid contents as a 2D texture, and in the shader do your displacement directly in your shaders, in your engine's shaders. Here in the editor, to display that, we use a pretty dirty solution, which is using the triangle renderer. So all these triangles of the dome are actually triangle renderers. You probably don't want to do that, but it shows one way to use the triangle renderer. I mean, performance-wise, you probably don't want to do that, but that's a temporary solution to still be able to display the sim results in the editor.
Yeah. Another example of the Wave 2D simulation, we have raindrops and the waves
Puddle.
raindrops that interact with the raindrops. So we are going to improve this example to have more interactivity, like for instance with a player walking around it and such. But for now, it's just this example.
That's just a test, basically. Right now, it's not meant to be brought in engine as is. Also, it runs purely in the CPU sim right now, because the layer that does the sim has to trigger events, so we can't switch it to GPU sim. We'll rework that and make a couple new examples.
Yeah. One thing to note here as well is the same with the shield dome example, is that we are using triangle renderers, but the normals of the surface could be stored on the grid and then used as a texture and as a normal texture directly with your material.
That's all.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, well, that's pretty much it for us. So the 2.22 version will be available like right after the live stream. We'll post the links on the Discord. So yeah, check it out, and if you have any questions, as usual, you can shoot questions in the chat. And if not, just join the Discord, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. So these are not, so if you download and run the 2.22 editor, you will not find these yet on the marketplace. They'll probably be up like tomorrow.
Same for the texture notes.
Yeah, same for the texture notes. Okay, well. Questions? Thanks everyone for joining, and see you next time for 2.23. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.